name is Dana Catron. I am Deputy Director of Arrowhead Center, and I'm also the SBIR Program Director here. And then, Kathy, you want to go ahead and
Hi, I'm Kathy Foster. I am also here to assist with your questions and any chat. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Okay, there we go. So today's presentation, what we're going to do is really give you a very baseline crash course in SBIR and STTR. So we'll go over what those two programs are, what the proposal process kind of looks like, and then what proposal development resources are available to you as small businesses. And I do want to say that even though we are based in New Mexico, a lot of these resources are available nationwide, so it does not matter which state you are in, and we can also direct you to a FAST site or a assistance organization in your specific state. So getting right into the SBIR and STTR programs, what are they? At the base, they're really designed to help startups, small businesses, get your high risk early stage technologies closer to commercialization. So SBIR is Small Business Innovation Research, and STTR is Small Business Technology Transfer. And we'll talk a little bit about the differences between those two programs, but we often refer to them as sister programs for a couple of reasons. And broadly, the goals, and these are the goals defined by the programs themselves, are to meet the federal R&D needs by providing research dollars to small businesses like yourself, increasing private sector commercialization of innovations, stimulating technological innovation, fostering and encouraging participation in innovation and entrepreneurship, and then fostering tech transfer, and really connecting small businesses to research institutions, and that's very specific to STTR. Before we go into the programs more, what I always like to cover is eligibility to make sure you are eligible for these awards. So to apply, you do need to be organized for profit, and you have to be located here in the United States. More than 50% of your business needs to be owned and controlled by one or more individuals who are citizens or permanent resident aliens of the US. This can get a little bit gray, so we always encourage you, if you have questions about eligibility, to reach out to us and we can work with you to make sure that you are in fact eligible. And then the definition of a small business by SBA is no more than 500 employees. One of the things we also really like to emphasize about these programs is the focus of these funds is to perform R&D. So it's not so much to purchase equipment, although that can be tied to performing R&D. It's commercializing a technology or not commercializing a technology that's already been developed or already exists, or one that's really low risk. So again, the two things to remember are high risk, early stage, and if you fit into one or both of those, you're probably in pretty good shape for these funds. Before you start, there's some things to consider because it's such a intense and long process to put one of these proposals together. So some questions to ask: do you have an innovative concept, a technology? It doesn't have to be technology in the traditional sense of a technology. So an example we like to give is years ago, a project got funded. The PI was creating comic books to treat PTSD. And according to NIH, that was in fact very innovative. And so he was, I believe, awarded a phase 1 and phase 2 for that. Can you translate the scientific method into a work plan? Can you follow directions explicitly? Can you navigate the multiple registration to put one of these or to submit one of these proposal packages? Developing a team and partnerships is really, really important, especially now compared to, I would say, 5 or 10 years ago. Are you financially ready? And do you have time management skills? Because as you'll see, putting one of these together is it can be a very long and arduous process. Let's see. So then why consider funds? There's a lot of really good reasons to apply for SBIR. The first is it's equity-free investment in your company. So you do not have to pay those funds back to the government or give away any of your company. It also allows you to demonstrate the feasibility of your idea at a very early stage when a lot of other funders, like investors, probably wouldn't invest. It also allows you to start building a team and building your company for success. It can help you provide due diligence for follow-on funding. So I know a lot of investors like to see that a technology has received SBIR or STTR funding. It helps validate the technology. It can help you map your product and value proposition. It reduces the need for you to self-fund, which can be incredibly expensive. You retain the IP and data rights, which is also really important. And this is really, I have it last. I really should put it up as like number 1 or number 2, but it positions you for sole source government contracts, which is incredible if that's a route you want to take with your business. So looking at the program broadly, SBIR and STTR, they both support R&D and financing of innovative technologies. For SBIR, it's about a $3.8 billion each year. And the way they calculate that amount is it's 3.2% of the rural research budget for all agencies with a budget greater than 100 million. So what that means is if an agency's budget falls below $100 million per year, they could opt out of this program. And if an agency who's not participating now has a budget that exceeds $100 million per year, they will be required to participate in the program. Oh, shoot.
That's okay.
Okay, we're having technical difficulties. Are they?
Oh, it was a presenter mode.
Oh, it was presenter. Oh, because this is a screen, so we need to just switch. So now is it showing up?
We'll see this, but this.
Okay. Right there. Yep. Okay. Sorry about that. And we'll send out the slides. You guys can have them too. Okay, so STTR, like I said, it's a sister program. So it's really designed for collaborations between small businesses and research institutions. Research institutions are institutions like universities, national labs, organizations like that. Similar to the SBIR program, it's a percentage of the extramural research budget, so 0.45% for agencies with a budget greater than 1 billion per year. So it's a smaller program because that budget is much higher. And that equates to about $518 million set aside per year for this program. Now, I believe it was last year, we gained another STTR agency. So USDA now participates in STTR, which is pretty exciting. Is it broken again?
Turns to be shared again.
Uh-oh. That's okay. And then something to remember too is the small business is always the applicant and the awardee. So even if you partner with a research institution for an STTR, you as a small business will still be the one putting in that application and executing on that. We good? Okay. How do I flip through? Okay, awesome. I'm just gonna hide you. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Kathy. Okay, so differences between these two programs, there's several. SBIR, you're allowed to partner or not. It's up to you. With STTR, you have to partner with a research institution. For the PI, the principal investigator, for SBIR, their primary employment has to be with the small business. For STTR, they may be employed by either the research institution partner or a small business. So we always like to say, if you are leaning towards working, say, with faculty at a university, to explore STTR for that reason, or as one of the reasons. For the work requirement, you are allowed to outsource up to 33% on an SBIR phase 1 and up to 50% on a phase 2. I actually have a chart that shows this a little bit more clearly. For STTR, a little bit different, 40% to the small business and at least 30% to the research institution partner. Now this one is big, IP requirements. For SBIR, obviously it's not required if you're not working with a university or a research institution. For STTR, you need an agreement in place. It has to be signed prior to the award. And because of this, we always recommend, if you're remotely interested in STTR, to reach out to us ASAP so we can help facilitate those conversations, because it can take a while to get those agreements in place. Participating agencies for SBIR, there's 11, STTR 6, and then we already talked about the program size for each of those. Uh-oh. Kathy had a... Oh, wait, there we go. We're good. Okay, so this is the chart I was mentioning that kind of shows the breakdown of how those awards can be broken up. So for SBIR, it's optional to subcontract up to 33%. For STTR with the RI, it needs to be at least 30%. And then you have about 30% discretionary that can go either way. We call the SBIR and STTR programs a gated program because there are gates. So that's from phase 1 to get to a phase 2, you have to have a phase 1 most of the time. There are some exceptions. We're happy to talk about some of those with some of the different agencies, but generally to go to a phase 2, have to have that phase 1. We call phase 0, this is not an actual phase, but many states have what we call phase 0 programs. So NMFAST, and we're the organization putting on this webinar today, we are a phase 0 program. And what these programs usually do, they offer assistance for proposal development. There's usually microgrants tied to them. Sometimes there's other support webinars like this, events, all of those kinds of things, all really designed to help you submit a strong proposal package. When you go into your phase 1, that's really your concept, right? And so it's for concept development between 100 to 250K over 6 to 12 months, again, depending on the agency. These are really competitive programs. So for phase 1, it's about a 15% success rate of submission across most of the different agencies. As we go to phase 2, that success rate goes up because the pool of applicants goes down, again, because you have to have a phase 1 to go to the phase 2. Phase 2 is really designed for prototype development, and because of that, the duration is longer and the funding level is also longer. One thing to note about phase 1 to phase 2, if you say get a phase 1 with NSF, that makes you eligible to get a phase 2 with any other agency. So it doesn't matter which agency you get your phase 1 with, as long as you have a phase 1, you can apply to a phase 2 with any other agency. Some agencies are now doing a second phase 2. This is a little bit newer, and this is really moving more towards demonstration. So again, it's very agency dependent. We encourage you to talk to us or really research the agency if that's something you're interested in. And then phase 3 is a little bit confusing because it's not directly funded under the SBIR and STTR programs, but that's because it's considered your commercialization phase. So there's limited direct funding, again, from the programs themselves. But if your end customer is, say, the DoD, they could fund you via other mechanisms to continue either developing or to commercialize that technology. So which agencies participate? We've got them all up here on the screen. All of these agencies are SBIR agencies, and then the ones in gray are the STTR agencies. So those participate in both. Yes. Oh, yeah.
In the market will be excluded from SBIR programs phase 1 and prototype phase 2 and be considered as commercialization phase 3.
If they have an MVP in the market.
Yeah.
It kind of depends. So so you can have something that's completely commercialized, right? But if there's something you need to tweak on it or anything like that, then that would make you eligible for SBIR. So you need to be working on something new, something innovative. It could be a piece to a greater, and that's often how we advise clients to structure their SBIRs. You can go after multiple SBIRs. So you may have one bigger technology, right? But your SBIR projects can address different pieces of that technology. So again, it kind of depends. I would encourage you to talk to us or talk to another support organization to really figure out your specific case, and we can provide better advisement. Okay, and then I was going to mention one other point of confusion is under the Department of Commerce, there are 2 SBIR programs, so NIST and NOAA. So we count those as 2 completely separate programs, but technically they're under the same agency. I'm not going to read this slide. It's here for as a resource. So we'll send these slides out after the webinar. But this just goes through really quickly, if you're new to the programs, what each agency generally funds. So if you think that, oh, hey, I have something in health, obviously NIH would fund that, but DoD might also. So there's a lot of overlap among the different agencies, and we encourage you to look at multiple agencies, even if it seems like your technology is very specific to a particular agency. Now, this is one of the reasons why we run these webinars and we provide assistance. So we've listed out here all of the different agencies, and it's kind of confusing, right? Because we talk about it as maybe 2 programs, SBIR and STTR. But then in the last slide we threw in, well, but there's 12 different agencies or departments that participate, and 6 of those also participate in STTR. So now we've got more programs. We're about to make it even more confusing for all of you, because among those different agencies, some of them have more programs within that agency. So under DoD, there are 14 different components who participate in the programs, and some of them are incredibly different. So Air Force runs their SBIR program unlike any other agency. And so it's really important, if you're interested in DoD, to really understand which component of DoD you're going to apply to, and then make sure you understand the requirements for that particular component. Under DHS, there are 24 institutes and centers under NIH and 3 other HHS agencies. The actual agency is HHS, but NIH is the biggest portion of that program. Under DOC, there are 2, NIST and NOAA, which I mentioned in the last slide. There are 12 different DOE components, 8 different DOT components, and that's it. So you can kind of see how it can be really, really confusing to put together a proposal package when you think you're applying to, you know, an SBIR, you're putting together an SBIR, but then it's which agency, which component within that agency, they may do things slightly different. The best example is DoD with the way Air Force does things compared to every other component within DoD.
You know, we had a question in the chat, but I answered it here, but I just want to make sure that you knew. So there was a question here, if American Seed Fund is a STTR program sponsored by NSF, and I replied that NSF has both the SBIR and STTR.
Yes. Yep. And American Seed Fund refers to, so SBA, Small Business Administration, administers the SBIR and STTR program. So all of the different agencies kind of report up to SBA. So yes, NSF has both an SBIR and STTR, and they do things different too because they require a project pitch. So yeah, they do things a little bit different too. So again, it's really important to understand the agency you are applying to.
Yeah, so the research, that's correct, but if it is, if you're going after NSF, there is project pitch, and if you are going after an STTR, you are required to have research.
Yes. Yep. And their project pitch isn't an oral, it's a slide deck that you will submit. So you're not physically pitching to anybody like a pitch competition, but same concept. Someone's having a party out there. Okay, agency differences. So we touched on a lot of these, but these are some of the important ones. The submission, and it will vary. So the proposal submission will vary based on the agency and based on the components within that agency. The proposal requirements also vary. So how DoD wants you to format and lay out your proposal package is going to be very different from NIH, for example. The funding levels vary. We have a slide that shows this, along with a slide that shows the period of performance. Those all vary based on the agency as well. The solicitations also vary. So we have some agencies who only do one solicitation per year, and then we have some who do up to 3 per year, and then some who just have open periods. So again, it's really important to know your agency and know when those solicitations are opening and closing. Communication with the topic authors or the program managers, or they even have different terminology for TPOCs. That will vary. So some agencies have very specific timeframes when you're allowed to talk to them, and some are a lot less strict. So again, know your agency. The registration requirements will vary, and so will the funding vehicles. So we treat each one as a different proposal because there's so much variance among the different agencies. I'm gonna skim over these two. These are more for reference, but what we did was we just made a chart so it's a little bit easier for you to see what registrations you will need depending on the agency. For all agencies, no matter who you apply to, you will need your EIN, your UEI, and your SBA company registration. That's blanket across all of, and your SAM. So actually there's 4. And then depending on the agency you're applying to, you will have additional registrations. What we recommend is if you're even remotely interested in an agency, to just go ahead and register. It doesn't take too much time. Some of them do take time, and all of the registrations are free. So we recommend just go ahead and register. It doesn't hurt to register, even if you don't end up submitting to that agency. Submission portals. Again, we just wanted to map out which portals you may need depending on the agency. A lot of them use grants.gov, but for some of our contracting agencies, obviously they're not going to use grants.gov. So again, something to keep in mind as you're moving towards submission. And then How do you even choose the best fit? So this is a question we get a lot, especially when we have clients who have technologies that are applicable to, you know, a lot of different agencies, or that a lot of different agencies would be interested in. What we like to recommend is figure out when their solicitation cycles are, so you can kind of plan ahead, and then down select from which one is the best fit, and then move forward from there. Obviously, we're going to recommend that you apply to the agency that is the best fit. You have the most chance of getting awarded, but you can recycle a lot of your proposal materials to apply to additional agencies. And this kind of leads to another question we often get is, can you submit the same proposal to multiple agencies? The answer is yes, sort of, because again, the requirements vary across the different agencies. So you can submit the same project to multiple agencies, you just can't get funded for the same project. So it is pretty rare. I've only heard of it happening maybe 1 or 2 times, where there's such an amazing project that agencies kind of fight over it. And in that case, they may decide to both fund you. And so that's something that can be worked out with those 2 agencies and yourself as a small business. It doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. But so again, what we recommend is maybe have a couple projects lined up. Again, you can have multiple projects tied to one technology, or you can be submitting for the same project. You just can't get funded for the same one. There are a lot of different tools to kind of figure out which agency is the best fit. One of the things we like to recommend is doing a topic search. You can go to SBIR.gov and do it right there, and search via keywords. That usually is pretty successful. And that search will pull open, future, and closed topics for all of the different agencies. So you can type in some keywords that are tied to your technology and see which agencies are funding similar projects. Some agencies do change their topics frequently, like DoD. So you want to pay particular attention to their topics. One of the things though with, say, DoD is you can talk to them, and if they really like what you're doing, they may put in a topic that is directly tied to your technology. So that takes some time, obviously, but that has happened before. And I've seen it actually happen quite a few times. So for contracting, and we'll talk about the difference between granting and contracting agencies, but particularly for contracting agencies where they're very, very specific on those topics, talk to them, even if it doesn't seem like they have anything that's aligned with what you're doing. Because if they like it, they may put in a topic for it. Reviewing literature cited and or referenced, the references contained in the topic description is another thing that not a lot of people really know about, and it can be really, really helpful for you as you're trying to narrow down agencies and topic fit. The agencies put a lot of time into their topics, and they will reference things, and if you go to those references, you can gain a lot of really valuable information that'll help you as you're trying to figure out, who do I apply to and what are they really looking for. We've also listed some other search engines, so grants.gov, FedBizOps, all of those are also great. And then the other question is, if you are trying to partner with a research institution, would STTR be a better fit than SBIR? And again, STTR is a little less competitive because it's a smaller program. There's a lot more requirements tied to it, so it's less people apply. And you have the advantage of a research institution on your project, so that can give you a lot of credibility in that proposal package. So some of the questions to kind of think about: do you have the research team you need, or would that be bolstered by working with a university or a lab? And do you have the facilities and equipment you need to perform the work? And if the answer is no, then you probably want to consider partnering with somebody who does have those. Okay, so grants versus contracts. SBIR and STTR deal in both. So this can be really confusing also. And this is again why we like to do these webinars, is to try and demystify it as much as possible. Granting agencies are going to have much less specific topics. They generally have areas that they're very interested in, and then they'll fund many projects that fit within that area. Contracts are very highly focused. So they're going to tell you what the topic is, and if you don't fit within that topic, we generally advise that you don't apply to it, because you probably won't be awarded. Grants can be a lot more flexible compared to contracts. If you've done anything in granting and contracting outside of SBIR, you'll probably know that. But grants are much more geared towards supporting a public purpose, whereas contracts are, it's a binding agreement between a buyer and a seller. So less flexibility on the contracting side. On the granting side, the PI has a lot more freedom in defining what your scope of work is. With contracting, again, less flexible. Granting, same with the use of funds, more flexible. Contracts, not so much. Grants are a little more flexible, again, in your research and outcomes compared to contracts. Contracts, they want clear-cut deliverables and they want to see those happen. Grants, if you think of universities, it's often tied to research, right? Grants, questions and answers about solicitation are not made public. So that's one of those communication things that can differ across agencies. Whereas contracting agencies, your Q&As will be public, usually via some portal. So for the different agencies, that differs. And then again, granting agencies, you're going to define the scope of work much more so than with contracting agencies. Is there a question? Oh, okay. And then this slide just shows you the breakdown of which agencies are contracting agencies, which ones are granting agencies, and really HHS is the only one who does both. So I'm not going to read all of this, but this is again for reference, so you can see the agencies, the phase 1 award amounts, phase 2 award amounts, the periods of performance for phase 1, phase 2, and then the total program funding, so you can kind of see the size. So as you can see, DoD at 2.29 billion is the largest SBIR STTR agency. And and the reason we bring that up is they are going to be making the most awards, if that makes sense. Data rights and IP protection. We often get questions about this. So as a small business, you will own and have full right and title to everything developed under your award, which again is one of the benefits of these programs. For STTR, it's a little bit different, right? Because you're partnering with that research institution, and so that IP agreement has to be in place. And that agreement is going to identify all of the terms and conditions of any of the IP that's generated out of that award. The data under SBIR and STTR is protected for a minimum of 20 years. And I probably should remove the new change because that's like four years now. It used to only be 4, so now it's 20, which is great. And that clock starts at the start of your award. USASBC must mark SBIR technical data appropriately. Data rights only apply if you have not protected the technology before utilizing SBIR and STTR funding. And just because you retain the rights to the data, the government does still have limited use for it. I've talked to many different agencies and program managers, and I've been in the SBIR space since about 2014, 2015, and they all say that they rarely, if ever, use this, but it's often to test, to retest the results or something like that. So they're not going to be, giving out any of your data rights or anything like that. If you want more information on this, we encourage you to utilize the USPTO. They hold regular, incredibly informative webinars on these topics, and they are much more informed on this than we are. We also advise if you want to talk to an IP attorney, that's always a great option as well. But we can do some limited advising and point you in the right direction. So, and I think this is the last, no, it's not. One of the last slides in this section, really the backbone of these programs, innovation and commercialization. That is what the federal government is really interested in and why they have dedicated funding for these programs. I mentioned this earlier, but innovation does not always mean high tech. So what we consider very high tech obviously is going to qualify under these programs, but things that are considered maybe lower tech processes or products can also be very innovative and can be funded under the program. So I provided the example of the comic books earlier. That's just, we like that example because you would not think of comic book development as super high tech, right? Commercialization. This, and I've seen how the agencies have shifted. It's been really, really interesting. When I first started, there was focus on commercialization, but it was much more geared towards phase 2. In phase 1, they did care, but they didn't care about it as much as they do now. And now what you'll notice in a lot of the phase 1 applications is they really want to see that you've thought out your market, your strategy, where does your technology fit within that? And so some of the things that, again, that we would advise to help you flesh that out, a lot of different organizations, not just fast sites, provide really great customer discovery accelerators, things like that. And so we often recommend participate in an accelerator. We run accelerators. I know in the state of New Mexico, there are many amazing, amazing accelerators that are run. Participate in one of those and you can leverage that in your proposal and say, hey, I'm going through this process to really, solidify my market, and I know where I'm trying to go with this. And again, sorry, I'll stop venting in a second, but one of the main reasons that they're focusing on this so much is they're trying to minimize the number of what we call SBIR mills who are participating in the program. And so those are basically companies who are incredibly good at getting SBIR awards, but are incredibly bad at commercializing anything. So their whole business model is just getting SBIR. And so that's really what they're trying to prevent. These programs are set up to get innovation commercialized. So, and then really quickly on government contracting, because we do get asked this a lot, there aren't any specific incentives that are tied to the SBIR programs for underserved businesses, but there are many for other contracting and procurement opportunities. And so if that is something you're interested in, we encourage you to work with some of our partners. And actually we have some slides towards the end that talk about some of those partners who provide those services. But if you are an underserved business, you can go to certify.sba.gov to take advantage of some of those. Okay, so going into the proposal process, and this is like the quick and dirty proposal process. If you want to really dive into this, what we typically recommend is going through one of our SBIR accelerators, and those go much, much more in depth on all of the different steps. But generally, you're going to make sure you're eligible. That's kind of the first step. If you're not eligible, there's no point in moving forward. It's a ton of work, and we generally say it's about at least 100 hours. I would say more like 120 to 150 hours if it's your first time putting together an application. And then, do you have an innovative idea that fits within the program? So again, that's kind of tied to eligibility, but you want to make sure that what you have is something that is of interest to the agencies and is fundable. And organizations like ours, that is what we're here to help you determine. You'll want to complete your registrations. So again, those are the ones that are required across all of the different agencies, and then all of the agency specific ones again, depending on which ones you are interested in. And then looking at what is your topic fit and talking to that agency. And so we always recommend reaching out to the agency and talking to them. We're happy to facilitate a meeting, but you can learn so much valuable information even in a 15-minute call with one of the program managers. You can see if they are in fact interested in what you're doing. They often advise that, hey, maybe the direction you're going isn't quite fundable, but if you tweak it or pivot it, it will be fundable and we'll be really interested in it. If you're talking to somebody like DoD and they don't have a topic fit for you, but they're really interested in the technology, maybe that opens up a conversation for a topic specific to you. So always talk to them. We're here to help you get ready for that call. And then we also host events, and there's many events hosted across the country that have one-on-one sessions available with program managers. And so every December, we bring together program managers from a bunch of different agencies who hold one-on-one sessions at the National SBIR conference, which this year is, I believe, happening in June in DC. That's another great way to go and talk to multiple agencies, you know, at the same time. So always recommend talking to them. They're going to know much better than we are if they want to fund what you're doing. Then you're going to put together the proposal package. And I always struggle with this slide because it's so different based on which agency you're applying to. So I would say just ignore most of these bullets because depending on who you're applying to, it's going to be completely different. But generally, you can expect to complete some kind of technical proposal talking about what you're doing, why it's important, and why you should get funding. You're going to have to talk about your team in some capacity. Again, it's going to depend on the agency on how they want that information. Usually they want to know about facilities. You're going to have to talk about your budget and detail your budget for all agencies. And then depending on the agency, you will have a bunch of other documents you'll have to attach with that proposal package. After you've done all that, we always recommend a third-party review to look through your proposal. You miss a lot of things as the writer and as the innovator. And so get that third-party reviewer to, you know, see anything you miss, point out some things. We do reviews through FAST. Most FAST sites do. So even if you're not in New Mexico, I encourage you to take advantage of it. Or again, reach out to us and we can connect you to somebody who can help you. After you do all that, you'll submit it. Do not wait until the last minute. This is one of I can't really explain the amount of pain you will be in if you did all of that work and then waited until the last minute and the platform crashes. And it does. And the agencies don't care. They say it's not our problem that our platform crashed. So we always say try at least one day before, and you still probably run into technical difficulties, but at least still have some buffer to navigate those, because most people wait till the last minute. So if you can imagine all of those applications going in at the same time, the platforms often crash. And then you wait. So depending on the agency, you can expect to wait for anywhere from 3 to 6 months to hear back from the agency on your award. And then we do need to update this diagram. It's several years old now, and a lot of the agencies have changed quite a bit, but we wanted to have a visual for, especially for new applicants, to see that all of the different pieces that go into putting a proposal package together, and then to also kind of visualize where we as a support organization fit within that process. And so you can kind of see we're there every step along the way if you become a FAST client. Again, this differs based on the agency, because now we have agencies who have project pitches. DOE requires a letter of intent. You know, there's a lot of variations, but generally, there's a lot of different pieces that go into a proposal package. Okay, so going into resources that are available to you to help you put one of these things together. SBA FAST sites, and these are the federal and state technology partnership programs. There's now a FAST site in almost every single state in the entire country. And so it is highly likely that your state has one. For New Mexico, if you're located here, we are the SBA funded site for the state, and generally all of these sites will do some kind of outreach, technical and business assistance, and often will provide financial support. So if you want to see if your state has a FAST program, visit that link, but again, most of them at this point do. The assistance and activities that we provide through our site are very broad. So obviously we have proposal development assistance. We work one-on-one with clients on whatever you need, whether you're brand new or if it's your 5th proposal. We will work with you on getting that proposal package together. We also provide reviews. We do have micro grants available to help with proposal development. And one of the things we're doing this year, we've done it last year, but we're going to amp it up again this year, is provide travel stipends to go to the national conference, because we believe that is like such an important event for small businesses to attend if you're looking at submitting one of these proposal packages. We do free workshops and engagement activities like this. We also have, and again, this is regardless of which state you're in, if you go to our website, you can access all of our tools and resources. And so we have them broken out for every single agency. We have things like compliance matrices, checklists, proposal templates, all of those different things that you need to put your proposal package together. We also have a monthly newsletter. We have a video series. We do have accelerators. We do larger conference style events. And then one of our newer activities is Canvas, or learning management system integration for our curriculum. So if you want to go at it at your own pace and just kind of start to learn about the programs without talking to one of us, you can go ahead and enroll in these classes, and it's self-guided and self-paced. So you can take as long as you want to move through all of the different modules. Okay. There are also a lot of online tutorials that the SBA has put out for SBIR. So if you go to their SBIR.gov website and go to the tutorials page, they have a ton of different tutorials that they've created over the last couple of years, which are really great. So we always recommend checking those out as well. There's also a monthly SBA Innovation Ecosystem Network call that I would encourage everybody. Before you couldn't access it, only support organizations could access it, but it's been great. They opened it up to everybody. And so they'll have the agencies come on, they'll have tons of different guest speakers all around SBIR. So if you're interested in the programs, I encourage you to attend the calls. It's every single month on the last Thursday from 2 to 3 Eastern time. And you can sign up at that link, which we'll send all of these out. I'd also recommend tapping into your PTACs. So all states have PTACs. The ones here in New Mexico are fabulous. We love working with our PTACs, and they will help you with things like registrations. They will sit down with you and get all of your registrations done. Compliance, if you need cybersecurity, which is getting really big now, they can help you with that. So I, again, encourage you to find a PTAC near you and engage with them, because they're fantastic and they're a free resource as well. SBDCs are another great one to take advantage of. They provide a lot of different training and counseling for small businesses and a ton of different services. These are throughout all of the different states. So, all states have SBDCs, and you can go to that link to find the nearest one to you. And go to the actual agencies themselves. So One of the things I always recommend is say you're interested in NSF, go to the NSF site and sign up for their emails. And you will be the first to be notified of any upcoming solicitations of changes. And that's actually the biggest thing is when they change things, which they often do, you want to know about them before you put together your proposal package and perhaps not know about them, right? If you're here in New Mexico, we definitely encourage you to work with our Minority Business Development Agency Business Center. That's where we are right now. And they are fantastic for helping businesses with not just SBIR. We work with them closely on that, but for doing things like finance, anything contract and procurement related, things like that. So fantastic resource we have here in New Mexico. And then I think this is the last portion, but upcoming events to take advantage of. We are running a multi-state NSF proposal lab. That is an accelerator. If you are interested in NSF, we encourage you to look into this. Our application deadline is March 16th, and then the cohort will run from March 23rd through April 20th. So it's a multi-week accelerator. And we also encourage you to attend the project pitch workshop on March 2nd. Again, NSF does require that project pitch, so we'll walk you through that entire process during that workshop. Surge is our clean energy cluster. And so if you have a technology that is in the clean energy or renewable energy space, regardless of what state you are in, I encourage you to apply to this cluster. We have a ton of different modules to help you get that technology closer to commercialization. And we're working very closely with both Sandia and Lanel. So you get access to both of those laboratories through this program. Oh, and that's it. So thank you. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties we had today with the PowerPoint, but we can take any questions now.